Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada. In episode 12, we speak with Nikos Apostolopoulos on the method of MicroStretching. Don, I just want to introduce you to Nikos Apostolopoulos. I had done a lot of work with Nikos,
since 1992, do you believe it?
Over 20 years. And so Nikos has developed a stretching technique unlike any other. It's coined MicroStretching. And it's a form of manual therapy that he actually does that's accompanied by a stretching program that he gives people to do on their own. But I would say the manual stretching that he does on his own is probably unparalleled to anything from a therapeutic sense, like in terms of stretching, that I've ever experienced. And he's had experience with a lot of NBA teams, worked closely with Ray Allen, and has had, I think, tremendous success with it. And then he wanted to go do a PhD research study on it, and he went to England to do it, and has had great results, especially as it relates to inflammation and other indicators. I'll let Nikos kind of get into it a bit more, but certainly a very...
Nikos, I'm obviously guessing you're Greek with that name. Nikos Apostolopoulos.
That's it. Now, are you recording this now, Derek? Or
yes,
not?
we're recording.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we are. We're recording, because I was going to say a very crass joke, and I thought to myself,
you can please bring it. There's no censor here.
No,
it's just when he said my PhD, it's because I went over to England and I got my PhD, which means poor, hungry, and desperate.
So I'd love to hear about this. I mean, this sounds incredible. MicroStretching. I mean, can you give us a little bit of history on this?
I developed MicroStretching back in 1995, and as a concept, it's been around since 1986 in my head. But what really was the impetus is in 1989, while I was in Vancouver, I got hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up with a spinal fusion in my neck. And the long and short of it is I tried physio, I tried massage therapy.
And I have to say, he put a really big dent in my car.
Mm-hmm.
It's because no. You got it all wrong. My ex-wife paid him to get rid of me, and he fucked up.
Sorry, continue.
So and then basically this is how it all started. I said to myself, why don't I just hang my head over the side of the bed and support my head? And I started getting rid of the neck. The key to MicroStretching, as Derek alluded to, is to work with inflammation, the inflammatory response, but more importantly is to try to minimize any muscle contraction in the muscle while it's being stretched to facilitate a better stretch, but more importantly, to take any stress off the muscle tissue itself. And this is what you see with a lot of stretching that's being done in I don't know if you guys offer stretching at your facility, but a lot of people that do stretching, they're very aggressive with the stretching, and it's that aggression that I think is causing tissue damage and causes inflammation, which is what you're trying to prevent with the use of stretching.
Right. I always hear that terminology when I learned about stretching was relax into the stretch. Yeah. And I still think to this day, and I'm not the expert on stretching, I'm not saying that I am, but I still see people really, aggressively attacking specific stretches, and I don't really understand it. What's your opinion on that?
Well, it's oddly enough you should say that, because as I was walking to the university today, I was seeing this person who was hell-bent on stretching his calf muscle to the point of pain.
Right.
The thing you've got to realize, which is very, very important, is that we've grown up with the mentality that no pain, no gain. This has been part of the industry for years. Like Derek and like I said, Derek and I have known each other since 1992, and we've been involved with sports since then, or way before then as well. And this whole mentality of no pain, no gain has its place with regards to training, Don. You know that. The thing is, because when you cause pain from a point of view of lifting weights and stuff like this, you're causing some muscle tear, and that muscle tear has to repair itself. That's an inflammatory response, which brings in all the, all the nutrients, all the new cells to be able to cause a regeneration and recovery of the tissue. And that's fine for training. But when you're looking with regards to stretching, you can't cause any pain and discomfort when you're stretching because you're going to cause inflammation. There's two schools of thought. One school of thought says inflammation is good because it actually brings in new tissue and we cause a repair, and voila, now we're back to training. The other school of thought, my school of thought, says if we already have inflammation in the system from training, from injuries, why do we want to cause more inflammation to heal inflammation? It just doesn't work.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think my question is you get every smart ass in the industry throwing that line at you. I've heard them, well, the body needs inflammation. I think a big question is how much?
Precisely.
And I start looking at, listen, we work with a lot of general pop here, and you look at a typical Wall Street guy who's sleeping probably 4 hours a night. He's drinking alcohol every night. He's eating a non-organic, foods. He's sitting all day.
Inflammation. And
my thing is this. No, I agree with you. Focus on reducing inflammation in these people because guess what? They probably have way more than they need anyway. So
and if they're obese, inflammation.
Thank you. So we're on great. Derek, I'm sorry you disagree with him.
I love inflammation. I'm trying to get fat to create more inflammation.
But this is what you see, Don. And the thing is, now you've got to realize that the most important thing with stretching is, and this is where Derek and I have had many, many talks, and where Derek and I are on board, is that we don't see stretching as a way of increasing range of motion. We see stretching as a ways and means of recovery and regeneration. And that's the biggest untapped field left in sports right now. So when you've got your businessman who spends 9-10 hours sitting in front of his desk, his hip flexors are exceedingly tight. And they come to you and they say, Don, I've got some low back problems. Well, it's because they've been sitting in that position for 8 or 9 or 10 hours. They've got mental, emotional stress, which only compounds the inflammatory response. And then they come to you with low back pain. Well, this is where proper stretching that doesn't cause any inflammation, but actually helps recover and regenerate that tissue is very important. Now, the most important thing that we have brought to the forefront through my talks with Derek and what I've been doing with my research is quality of sleep. Yeah. That's what proper stretching does. And it's when a person sleeps, and it's the first 2 cycles, Don, of the sleep cycle that are the most important, because that's when you get into your deepest sleep. And that's when you actually stimulate proper recovery, regeneration of the body, and the body heals. Mm-hmm. Now, this is what MicroStretching does. Most people that have been stretched by me, the one thing that they attest to and say is that their sleep is a lot better.
Yeah, Don, when he stretches you, you'll fall asleep, and it's not just because of the stories he's telling you.
That was
don't worry, I'll come back. I got a good back with a comeback. I'll get you.
No, you know what? But I agree with you, and I feel it. And sometimes what happens is I'll get home. I train in and out of the city, so it's an hour on the train, and I try not to sit the whole time. I try and stand if I got to do some work, whatever. But when I get home, if I move around, and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong stretching, but if I just move around and kind of lubricate the joints a little bit, I find that I sleep better at night.
Well, yeah, but the thing that's really, really important is, and this is the one thing that's different from what we talk about MicroStretching, is that we teach people to stretch before they go to sleep to facilitate a deeper sleep.
Right.
Because whether you believe it or not, modern man is sleep deprived.
I totally agree with you.
And this is what you're starting to see. You're starting to see increases in a lot of diseases, which are all inflammatory based: type 2 diabetes, inflammation, cancer, inflammation, mental emotional stress, inflammation, fibromyalgia, inflammation, chronic fatigue, inflammation. You have to break that cycle.
Right.
And if you try to do it through pain and discomfort and causing more inflammation, the person is lost.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right. So you've got me very interested. Now it's like, you know, Derek's brought you in. I just met you. I love you already. You're Greek. It's all good. But
a quarter of you loves me. A quarter of you loves me. The other 3/4 says, hey, get rid of this.
And we do make better pizza, by the
way. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. But we make better moussaka.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We don't make any. I love it. And souvlaki and spanakopita, right?
You know, you want to know what's really funny is it's not Greek. All of that is not Greek. It's Turkish.
It's Turkish, right? Yeah. Yeah, it really is, right?
I've said to a lot of people that the Greeks may have been under bondage for 500 years to the Turks, but we've made a killing on their cuisine.
As you're laughing. So my question is, explain this now. People are probably saying, what the hell is MicroStretching? Like, what is it? Is it a system of, you know, 800 different stretches and you got to kind of choose what works? Is it one simple system that you've kind of packaged to where it's easy to follow? Kind of give me a little description on it.
Well, Derek's used a lot of MicroStretching in the past with his athletes. Now, the most important thing is if I am working on a person, let's say you came to my clinic and you had some issues with your lower back, I will stretch you, right? And then I will prescribe 3 stretches that will help you alleviate your problems. Okay, so if you've got a hip flexor issue which is affecting your lower back, the stretches that I would recommend is a glute piriformis stretch. Now, let's describe this stretch. A lot of your clients may do a somewhat of a similar stretch. You know, when they're lying on their back and they cross their, let's say they cross their left ankle over their right knee, and you know, and they grab it in this position.
Yeah.
Okay, that's similar to it, but there's a big difference. What you want to do is you want to use a wall.
But the thing is, the other way, you're under too much tension, correct?
Exactly. You're contracting. Right. So the concept is you have to show them stretches where you're relaxing as much of the muscle group as possible to facilitate the stretch that you want to do. So use
so that's simple.
Huh?
That's simple. That seems pretty simple.
Yeah. Today I went to my bank and just to deposit.
Is it a Greek bank?
Yeah, it's a Greek bank. It's in drachmas. Greece. But anyways, so about 2 weeks ago, I walked in there and my bank manager said to me, "Hey, Nick, can you prescribe a stretch for my lower back? I mean, I feel it and I feel pain in the front." And I said to her, "Yeah, really simple." I said, go to your chair and then place. I've got to show you this stretch. So basically, how are we going to do this? Anyways, if this is the chair, I would actually get them to put themselves in this position. Can you see this?
Yeah, very well.
And then all I would do is then I would get them to use the back of the chair, and making sure that the top of the foot is on the floor. If people are looking at this right now, they're probably saying,
"Oh, they will be."
Yeah, what happened to your shoes?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, what happened to my shoes? You know, I used to walk in London barefoot. I'm one of those people. Anyway, so the back of the foot is done in such a manner. Now I'm going to have to take my headset off.
No, it's totally, yeah. I mean, Derek, we could try and even get a good diagram of this.
Yeah,
right?
I'll put up.
I actually have these diagrams.
Yeah,
so Derek's got a lot of these diagrams. So basically, and all she does is she uses the back of the chair and leans slightly back and picks up a gentle stretch in the anterior of the leg in this case, the right leg. And the key is, here's the key, the intensity of the stretch, Don.
Yeah.
Out of a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being that aggressive burn and pain, and 0 being no stretch, people have to stretch around a 3 or 4 out of 10. What does that mean? It's almost like putting your hand in lukewarm water. That is the key. The intensity is the key. So when you pick up that nice gentle stretch and you get that level of 3 or 4 out of 10, you hold the stretch for 60 seconds. Now you might say, Nick, why 60 seconds? It takes about 30 seconds to move from the middle of the muscle belly, because stretching, and here's the other thing that's is when you are stretching, if you're feeling the stretch at the extremity of the muscle, for instance, when people stretch their hamstring muscles, they're feeling the stretch behind the knee. And a lot of you will say, oh, I'm feeling the stretch behind my knee. That is wrong. The stretch needs to be felt in the middle of the muscle belly. So how
do you cue someone? How do you cue someone on that? Because listen, that's happened to everyone here. You know, you're putting them through a specific hamstring stretch. They might feel it in the back of their knee. What do you say to them at that point? I'm just getting curious on your approach.
No, it's a good question. You basically tell them not to stretch their hamstring with a straight knee.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is, when you straighten out the knee for the hamstring stretch, your perception is that you think you're stretching your hamstring. No, you're not. What it is, it's a tug-of-war match between the gastroc muscles, one of the calf muscles, which connect high above the knee here,
right,
and the hamstrings that connect below the knee. So it's a tug-of-war match between the gastrocnemius muscle and the hamstring muscle, and that's what you're picking up on. That's not a stretch.
Okay.
Here's another classic, because we're on the topic of position. A really simple way, and this stretch was used in the English ballet, which is a simple stretch. Your calves. People that complain about a lot of tight calf muscles. What is the one stretch that you see a lot of people doing in a gym to stretch their calves?
Oh, they're all going up to the stupid door, and they're dorsiflexing their foot. And yes.
Exactly. Now, think about this, because remember what I said earlier, the concept is that you've got to relax as much of the muscle group as possible when you're stretching. When you're standing upright, your calf muscles are active.
Yeah, they're all active.
Exactly. So now you're going to try to stretch a muscle that's contracting at the same time. Where's the stretch?
Where is the stretch?
If you want to stretch the muscle properly, especially the soleus, sit down. The moment you sit down and you put like a phone book or an object at the balls of your foot, and then you basically move the lower leg in a way where you still maintain contact with the heel on the ground, and then you're picking up a gentle stretch in the soleus muscle, that's stretch.
You know what's funny though? You know what's so contradictory about all this? And trust me, I'm agreeing with you 1,000%. But
you have to, or because if I find out where you live, you're done.
I'm coming to you first. Watch out. I know where you are.
Okay, that's true.
But you want to know what? Everyone's always trying to find the deepest, most intense stretch. And it really is a perfect example of how, more is just, I've been in this industry now, and I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm pushing 20 years. I just turned 40.
Oh, you don't look it. I thought you were 22.
Yeah. I was going to lie and tell you I was 55 and see what you said.
This is Italian.
I know, I got you. But, it really is. There's nothing in the industry I've seen being in this long where more is really better. I mean, yeah, you can get into volume training at some point or whatever, but at the end of the day, the result is always, if we can just teach people to go easier at everything, I think, because it's not, even with stretching, why do people hate stretching? Because they think it fucking hurts. Like, no, this hurts. This is painful. This is a tough position to be in. But imagine actually, systematizing, well, you have, but actually turning around and now being able to offer this to the masses and show them, listen, easy stretching works better. I mean, I think we're in a better place.
I think what would be really good is if actually we set up, if you're into it, and Derek and I can meet in New York City and come down to your to your place of business and bring this forward. Because the one thing that's very, very important is, and I'm only an hour away by plane. The one thing that again, it goes back to what I said earlier on, Don. People have this idea that no pain, no gain.
I know.
And you hit the nail on the head, because people say stretching. Why do I want to stretch? Because, you know, it's not glamorous. It's not beautiful. I'm not going to have my big biceps. However, the most important thing is that if you stretch properly, you're going to build that muscle through its full range of motion.
Right. And you're also, and I got to jump in here because you get me all amped up here, but the stretching is also going to make people feel a lot better if they're doing it right. They're going to be more motivated to be more active. And that's something I've seen a lot. Suddenly, guys that I play hockey with are not playing as much. And I'm like, oh, I'm busy at work. I'm like, why aren't you playing? They're like, my body hurts. Or, you know, this is tight. I feel like if everyone could, I almost disagree. Like, can stretching cause weight loss and lower body fat? Absolutely it can. Why can't we say that? Anyone who's doing it's going to feel better. Anyone's going to be more active. They're going to think twice about maybe going for that long walk or doing something that may have caused them some hurt or harm in the past. So, you know, in a way, But,
you know, the other thing that's very, very important is, as we age, and once you go past the age of 40, sorry to say this, Don.
No, I'm right there.
You start losing about 10% of your muscle mass, and you start decreasing a lot of your range of motion. So one of the things that's very, very important for the latter years in life is getting involved in a proper stretching program that is going to give you mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
difference.
key.
And there's a difference. I was always taught there is a difference between mobility and flexibility. I was told mobility is having the strength to be able to move through those positions, and flexibility is just getting yourself into that position, which we've seen a lot of people get hurt because they have no control over their body, a lot of dancers, etc. So
exactly. And I've worked with ballet dancers, and it's mobility. And the thing is, what's very, very important is, as you're working with the aged population, they are the ones that need this more than anything, because they're the ones that are living longer. We're living a lot longer nowadays than our predecessors. So we need to have that mobility in our joints. We need to have that range of motion through our joints to be able to do the things that we want to do. What's really interesting is, I mean, I see a lot of my friends that I grew up with that, you know, are overweight, are fat, have zero mobility, and they have this mentality that, you know, this is life, and this is I've just got to get used to the fact that this is the next stage of my life, the next phase of my life, and that's it, which is wrong.
I agree.
You know, and when you see, the real kicker is, when you look at elderly people who have lost plantar and dorsiflexion, okay, just look at how they walk. And the one thing you will notice is that they walk in such a manner where they're stooped over about 5 degrees, right? Because they don't have the flexion in their ankles. So then they're walking like this.
Right.
And the kicker is, if you ask them about their lower back, they'll tell you that they've got a lot of pain in their lower back. And here's why. Because they've lost that mobility in the ankle, which is very, very important, they compensate by moving 5 degrees forward, which then means that the hip flexor muscle is no longer lengthened as much. It's actually tightened because it's shortened. And that's why they end up having low back problems. So if you take that same person, show them mobility and show them stretching exercises that are going to increase the range of motion in the ankles, which will give them more mobility and allow them to do more range of motion through plantar and dorsiflexion, they will straighten up. This moment they straighten up, they take that stress off their lower back. Voila, very simple. Very, very simple.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed, Don, when working with Nick all those years ago, was I think there's a huge connection between the neurological side of it. So if you're tight and things are shortened, your nervous system is more sympathetic, right? So But by doing the stretching, I noticed that people would relax, like mentally too, and it would unload them. And there were a lot of mental health issues around anxiety associated with like physically being tight. And Nick was having good results by just stretching people. And then you could see there was a release mentally that was involved with that.
You must see it. I mean, I feel it when you're rested properly. It's probably a lot easier to get them into positions where the tissues probably a lot more pliable or whatever it is.
Don, 60 to 70% of my patients fall asleep.
Wow.
When I'm stretching them. And what's so important is, even if it's a 20-minute nap, that is the biggest recovery that you can do for the body.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
And here's the kicker. Like, I mean, when I had my clinic in Vancouver, and Derek used to come to the clinic and work with patients, because Derek is one of only 2 people that I've showed this technique to. And Derek's always been on my case to try to get this out there. And I mean, I got to thank Derek for promoting me. I designed the clinic in such a way that there was no fluorescent lights overhead. There was no lights overhead on the clients or the patients themselves. All the light was ambient on the sides. It was Japanese-based design. Now, you got to see where I'm going with this, because the one thing that you got to keep in mind, Don, is anything you do in life when you're in your conscious state, you experience everything through your 5 senses. Sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Okay? In order to actually help the body heal, because the body's the great healer. Any therapist that says to you, I'm a healer, they're a schmo, because they're not healers.
The body's got an incredible ability to heal.
Exactly.
And all of this stuff, in my opinion, is just giving it, how good of a chance are you giving it to heal to its fullest? And that's why
exactly. And this is the one, we're facilitators.
Yeah.
We're facilitators. So,
oh man, it doesn't sound as cool though, man. You should go around calling yourself a healer. So when I come to Toronto, man, I definitely gotta come visit you, because I really want to check this out. And I know Derek, you're gonna want. I mean, we're probably gonna want to throw some diagrams up here at some point. And
yeah.
Maybe give a couple of clips and give some examples.
Derek's got a book that I wrote on microstretching, so there's a lot of diagrams in there. And
I'll forward it. And
feel free to use the diagrams.
Yeah.
The book hasn't come out yet, so if Derek forwards something to you, Don, just keep it. The diagrams is not a problem, but
sure.
The book, and then
appreciate it.
You never know. Maybe we'll use Drive as the launch for microstretching.
I love it.
I'm serious. I know a guy.
Listen, I want to experience it. I definitely want to check it out. I mean, it sounds incredible. The thing I'm almost disappointed on is that how many people have actually had access to this. Doesn't seem like a lot.
I mean, from a patient's point of views, I've done lots of treatments, but from showing it to other people, I am not a marketing person. I'm not.
We gotta help you out with that.
Okay, you're on.
I love it. We'll figure it out.
I love working.
No, it's Don, Nico, Derek, MicroStretching.
Yeah. When you come out here in May, see, I work out at a clinic in Vaughan. Derek connected me with a guy named Dan.
But you should meet him. You should meet Don and just stretch him at his hotel or something like that. Like do an actual full session.
After seeing what's on his walls, he ain't coming to my hotel, but we'll figure it out.
No.
Just leave the door.
I'd be honored. I would be.
No, you'll do me the honor, but I will definitely stretch you. And when I worked with Ray Allen and a lot of the people in basketball in the NBA, because predominantly most of my work was in the NHL and the NBA, the one concept that always popped up, remember, Derek, when we were down working with Dennis Scott, he looks back and he goes, "What you doing, Big D?" And I like that, right? And he goes, "I'm stretching." He ain't look like he's doing some stretching, It's just so simple. And the one thing that a lot of athletes say to me, and non-athletes, is it's so simple, but when they get up and walk, it's just like
you feel it, yeah.
What have you done?
And that's what I'm excited about. This is just we need to take health, wellness, fitness, call what you want, and The word is simple. We just have to make everything very simplistic. And I think part of the reason why people are so freaked out, and part of the reason why 99% of, you know, our country is living on the couch, that's not an accurate statistic, but probably not far off, is because they are under the assumption that everything they have to do to feel better, to look better, needs to be this Rocky type approach, this climbing up the mountain with the log on his back, about to fight Drago, and then he's got the crap kicked out of him where he's laying in bed for 6 months. It's like, it's just not reality. And we need to start showing people that, yes, maybe a few minutes of this, maybe just 5 minutes of bodyweight squats and toe touches in the morning are going to turn you into better shape and make you happy with yourself.
But the key to what you're saying, and Derek and I have had these talks before, is consistency.
That's
Even
it.
if it's 5 minutes.
One word. It's one word. It's
yeah.
consistency. That's it.
Even if it's 5 minutes a day where you're doing, a push-up, 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, 10 whatever. That 5 minutes a day, taken over 365 days, makes a difference. And that's the key. It's consistent.
Yeah, and there was that study that came out. I just read it the other day, and it was about how women who exercise regularly have 90% less chance of dementia, right? And it's, along the same lines of what we're talking about.
And even, Derek, you hit the nail on the head. Even dementia is an inflammatory response.
Oh, totally believe that.
If you can get people to first and foremost eat properly, get them. I'm a vegan, by the way, Don. So basically, if you can get people to eat properly, get them away from processed foods, get them away from nitrates. It's kind of hard to try to get away from GMOs because it's in everything.
Yeah, it's in a lot.
Get them to drink water, right? And then do something that diminishes any type of mental, emotional stress. That is the key to getting them better. Healthy.
Yeah, and longevity. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean,
longevity, and that's simplicity.
And I love it. I mean, just to give, some of our listeners a little perspective on this. You said 5 minutes. God, if someone just did 10 push-ups a day, if you took someone last year who didn't go to the gym for a minute and they were somehow, whether they're incline push-ups, whether they're suspended, I don't care what it is, a push-up, 10 push-ups a day, you're looking at almost 3,650 push-ups a year. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get in better shape. If you have that in the consistent day in and day out of the way that you live. And that's why, get them off the couch. Stretch for just a little bit of period of time. We've got to be able to, how do we show people where to find micro-stretching? Someone's listening to us right now. I'm interested. Do you have any site, anywhere that you could sell them a book?
Well, there's a micro-stretching a website, but that's been somewhat, it's still there, but it's been dormant for a while. I think the best connection would be through Derek.
Okay.
Derek, and
Derek, this is what we're going to do. Derek and I, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be in Toronto in May. We're going to meet. We're going to go through a session. And then we're going to figure out, Derek, a way, because, I've got so much trust in Derek. I mean, first off, we know you know what you're talking about. Everything that you're saying makes perfect sense. People would say, well, how do you know you haven't tried it? You're in this industry long enough. You know the good and
the charlatans and all this. And Don, the reason why I went and did my PhD, which was a gamble, was to basically sit back and say, okay, guys, yeah, Nick, you're talking about stretching and blah, 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 but where's the proof?
Right.
And I used to give talks. Like if I gave a talk to a national strength and conditioning conference, and I'd say, yeah, this is what micro-stretching does. This is what we've seen. And this is how people feel. Without a doubt, the first people are going to say, where's the proof?
Right.
Where's the science?
Right.
Right. I have the science.
Time out though.
Uh-huh.
Time out. A small percentage of the population will ask for the science.
Yeah.
And that's what we forget when Derek, you and I mean, we're going to talk about this more.
Yeah,
but,
we will.
Derek's one of the smarter coaches that I've met.
Uh-huh.
And when you start surrounding yourself with very intelligent, brilliant coaches who their entire life they've been researching and they've been learning, like yourself with your PhD, and there's so much knowledge in everyone's head here, but when you're speaking to the general pop, they trust Derek already. They trust you because they know you. They trust me because they want us to deliver what we believe works. So I think, yeah, listen, I'll have argued that doctors come in, cryotherapy, where's the science? You know what I say to them? Because I have a cryotherapy chamber here. I say, my client leaves here feeling better. They're in a better mood. Cold therapy. I'm not making assumptions.
You've got a cryotherapy there?
I do.
Okay.
So, but
ready for this? Ready for this?
Yes. You better talk nicely about it.
Ready for this? Dan just told me to be quiet. Ready for this?
Yeah.
You've got people that have rheumatoid arthritis?
Yes, of course I do. Sure.
Osteoarthritis?
Yeah, of course.
Ready to do a study combining microstretching and cryotherapy?
Amazing.
I have a friend of mine who actually, his name is Ian Bridge, and he was one of the first people to introduce cryotherapy in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Bolton Wanderers was the first FC team to bring in cryotherapy. And the one thing that when I was in the UK, I wanted to build, and Derek knows about this, a recovery regeneration center of which cryotherapy was going to be part of it.
I think it's brilliant.
We will do a study. Now, having said that, there is another thing in New York City. There's an organization called NISMAT. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's called the Nicholas Institute of Sports Medicine and Athletic Trauma. You should look them up. There's a guy there named Malachi McHugh. He's a researcher there. These guys These guys are interested in combining concepts like stretching and therapy and all that. NISMAT was started by a Greek named Dr. Nicholas. I think his last name was Nicholas. It's in Lewiston, New York, or was in Lewiston, New York, and it was one of the first sports medicine athletic traumas in the world.
Wow.
There's ways where we can dovetail.
Where we can integrate this stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, Derek may even have to come meet us. Come on, Derek, meet us in Toronto for a day.
Okay, I got a whole bunch of
hang out for a day.
Air miles.
You can stay at my house. Like my mother's got an extra room, right? So
that sounds exciting.
I don't recommend that, Derek.
At least you'll get to eat some good Greek food.
So listen, I will let you know when we're up there in Toronto. When I'm up there in Toronto, I'll get a date. I think a lot of people are going to want to know who you are and what microstretching is. And Derek and I will come up, and you should allow us to help you kind of, figure out how to get this mainstream a little bit, or at least offer it on our site so if people want to learn about it or something. But let's figure something out.
Don, let me be quite frank with you. Anything that it can help get this out there, not about me, but this out there is one thing that's important. Because right now I'm working with athletes here in Toronto, working with NHL athletes, with lacrosse players, and we're getting the same results. We're starting to see the exact same things. Like, literally, people are here and they've asked me, when are you going to add another day or two? And I said, I can't until I get my book finished. This book that I'm writing is actually the science behind stretching intensity and inflammation, right? But anything that can help. Now, before we stop, and this is the truth. If we help each other, this is how we're going to get an amalgamation of different ideas that can make a big difference with regards to helping people get better.
I agree. So people want to find you. How do they find you? Someone wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way to contact you?
MicroStretching@gmail.com.
That's easy enough. MicroStretching@gmail.com. I'm going to be in Toronto in May. I definitely want to meet you,
same here.
have a cup of coffee, figure that out. Hopefully Derek can make the trip out if he's not afraid. And
but more importantly, you have to come up to give me my Drive t-shirt.
I will hand deliver it. But listen, it's such an honor and pleasure to have you on. Derek and I are really having a lot of fun with this podcast, and to bring brilliant people on like yourself has just really been an honor I know I speak for Derek also, but for the both of us. So keep doing what you're doing, man. It's really a privilege anytime I can speak to someone who's just trying to focus on the betterment of society and health and wellness. And not everyone, looking for a paycheck. It's nice to hear that people out there still really love and care about what they do.
Well, it's not about the paycheck, Don. It's about helping people get better. The paycheck will come, but when you get people feeling better, they're your spokespeople.
I agree 100%. So we're going to close on that, Derek.
Sounds good.
Okay.